Hello, it's Good Friday, the 19th of April 2019, and Plus TV Africa wishes you a happy Easter in advance. And the weather forecast in Lagos is 33 degrees at the very highest, and at the lowest today it will be 26 degrees with widely separated morning thunderstorms, but there will be breaks of sun in between. So remember to stay hydrated always. I'm Tokunbo Taiwo, and this is Off the Press. With me this morning to discuss the major headlines on the dailies is a public affairs analyst, Gbolahun Olojede. It's good to have you once again.
Good to be here.
All right, so it's Good Friday. You know, what are your plans? What's your take on Good Friday generally? And if you have any plans for the weekend or for Easter?
Okay, Good Fridays, whether you believe, whether you're a Christian or not, the message of Good Friday is not necessarily for Christians alone. It's about sacrifice. And in the Nigeria of today, there is so much call for that. In public service, in private sector, everywhere we find ourselves, we should be able to make sacrifice. It's not all about us. It's also about the people all around us. And we should be able to emulate what Jesus did. His son was a bit on the extreme side of things, but in our own little ways, we can all make sacrifices.
Okay, so what are your plans for the weekend then? Are you going anywhere? Are you resting? Are you busy?
The last 2 days were a bit frustrating for me. I went to Abuja on Tuesday. My plan was to come back on Wednesday. And as early as 10 a.m. on Wednesday, I was at the airport. All the flights were fully booked till 9:30 p.m. at night.
Oh dear.
You know, and I was like, what's going on? Is everybody leaving Abuja? So I just had to make up my mind at some point that I need to go back and try the next day. Then when I was trying to get a ticket yesterday again, I found out that the earliest I could get was 10 p.m.
The following day?
Yes.
Oh my days.
So it was sort of, what's going on? Is everybody leaving town? Is it because of the Easter? You know, I still don't have a proper explanation as to why it had to be that way. But I didn't get into Lagos until about 11:30 yesterday.
Yesterday.
You know.
You're going to be needing a lot of sleep today.
Yes, I'm going to do some catch up on it.
All right, let's get right into it. So on today's episode, we've got a number of papers. We've got The Nation, we've got The Punch, we've got a Vanguard, we've also got This Day newspaper. Okay, so let's start first of all with The Punch. The Punch newspaper, the major headline on The Punch newspaper is Jeers, CCT sacks Onnoghen. The story is available on page 2, and underneath that is a rider that says ex-CJN appeals against tribunal's judgment. And just underneath that are a couple of pictures of Onnoghen himself, Umar of the CCT chairman, and Efut, the ex-CJN's lawyer, all of them making their statements on that headline there. Okay, at the top of the Punch, we've got Malibu oilfield license, 9 others to expire in 2020, 2021. The story is available on page 25. And underneath that, also at the top of the Punch newspaper, Buhari signs 30,000 naira minimum wage bill. Next to that headline is Senate keeps mum on Maynard's probe report 1 year after. The story is available on page 40. Let's look at the bottom of the Punch. At the bottom in the right-hand corner, we have Zamfara raids. NAF investigates dead civilians' names, troops, arrests local government vice chairman. The story is available on page 13. Okay, so let's start with this Buhari signs 30,000 naira minimum wage bill. What's your initial take on that?
I would say after so long,
it's finally
it's a win for Labour, but it still comes with a lot of challenges. You have a situation in which currently at 18,000 naira minimum wage, a number of states are struggling to pay. Now, when that goes to 30, which is almost double that amount, there will be some challenges at the state level. As far as the federal government is concerned, he said it has made provision, even set up a committee to look at how it can finance it without having to borrow. Already, some states are borrowing to pay the 18,000. If this is now 30, how will they cope? Those are the things that will play out as implementation starts, now that it has become law.
Okay. All right. So, because I think in my talks with many of the analysts that come on the program, you know, one of them actually mentioned that this minimum wage bill is likely to, well, that it's not going to have any effect whatsoever on
inflation.
On inflation. What's your own take?
It will have effect on inflation.
Okay.
When people's disposable income increases, the market reacts. It's a natural phenomenon. I had 18,000 to spend last month. This month, I have 30,000 at my disposal. So definitely, I will chase more goods, more services. When I do that, the demand for those services or underlying goods increases. And when demand goes up like that and supply is still at the same level, price automatically will go up. The prices will go up. So there will be mild inflationary effect of the 30,000.
Okay, I'm glad you say mild, because I was quite worried that it might have some kind of significant impact, you know, but you don't think so?
I don't think it will be significant, because people have they've gotten on the mood of the 30,000 already.
I think some are already spending it before it comes. Yes.
And then there are also challenges with the possibility of a fuel price increase, some tax reforms. There are a few other things in the space there that are not exactly making the 30,000 as exciting as it could be.
Because I was actually going to go into that in today's, you know, modern day and age, and with the economic situation in the country, you know, is 30,000 really, you know, I know they've done fair, like you said, almost half, but is it really in today's world, you know, economical and, you know, one that the everyday man will be able to survive on?
That's a big one. And it's fairly complex. It's fairly complex because there are several perspectives and dimensions to minimum wage issues. For example, it's been said that the civil servant, that's the public sector part of things, and which is a huge employer of labor in Nigeria, by the way, is overbloated. Number two, when you're increasing wages, is your revenue commensurably also increasing? Nigeria has a very serious, our very serious revenue problem. We are extremely, extremely poor as far as national revenues is concerned. Nigeria's budget for 2019 is 6.97 trillion as revenue. A smaller economy, South Africa, is about 41 trillion naira equivalent. So when you put salaries in South Africa and you want to stack it beside Nigeria, for example, you start say, oh, see what people are earning in South Africa. See 30,000 that we are rejoicing about. Have you considered the income from which things are going to be paid? So as a nation, beyond the debt, we have debt issues that everybody is talking about. But when you dig deeper, you see that the debt is just a symptom. The real disease is revenue, which is very, very poor.
So once they increase revenue, hopefully they'll be able to increase the minimum wage as well, which will have a knock-on effect on the general economy. If we drive the revenue, it will drive a lot of other things, including the disposable income to Nigerian workers, as well as being able to deal with the issue of an overbloated workforce. I was in a particular office some months ago, and as at 10:30 a.m., more than 50% of the chairs were still empty. One of the people that was already on seat, what she did was bring out a bowl of jollof rice. Till about 12, when I left, she was still eating that bowl of jollof rice. And that person will say, minimum wage, minimum wage. What have you actually done? To earn the, you know, the performance management issues is also a major thing. It's fairly complex. The minimum wage thing is complex. All right, let's leave the minimum wage bill for a moment. Let's move on to the Zamfara raids. NAF investigates dead civilians' names, and troops arrest LG vice chairman. Initial reaction. The Zamfara situation, the way things are playing out shows that it's a very complex issue. You have the people in the citizens shouting that bandits are killing them. What is the government doing? Government said, okay, the military, move in and deal with this bandit. The military moved in, then they
traditional ruler said, the military, you are killing citizens. You are not killing the people you are killing
bandits.
are not the bandits. You are killing the citizens. There are certain undertones in all of this. There is a deep involvement of the elite in what is going on in Zamfara. Unless we disentangle that,
yes,
we'll continue. This is the ordinary man that will continue to suffer.
The way you say that, there's a deep involvement, with the elite, it's very accusatory. Do you not think so? And then do we have any facts backing it up?
It is the way it is playing out.
All right.
It's the way things are playing out.
All right then, Gbolahun, let's leave it there. Let's move on to our next newspaper now. We have The Nation. That's what we're going to talk about next. The major headline, they've got a picture of the fire that took place in Ibadan. So the headline is 2 die in Ibadan petrol tanker fire. The full story is on page 42. And underneath that headline is another main headline as well, which is Onnoghen convicted. Underneath Onnoghen convicted, we have a couple of riders. 47.8 million naira in 5 accounts forfeited. And ex-CJN appeals tribunal's decision. And underneath that, we've also got presidency, verdict boosts anti-graft war. The full story is on page 6. Let's look at the top of The Nation. We've got a number of stories there as well. In the left-hand corner, in the top left-hand corner, we have Buhari signs 30,000 naira minimum wage bill, page 6, which we talked about earlier from The Punch. And underneath that news headline, we've got 164 APC reps elect back Gbajabiamila. That name is a complete tongue twister. Okay, the story is available on page 10. Okay, next to that, on the right-hand side of The Punch, also at the top, we have Lastma has power to arrest, says CEO. Story is available on page 4. Federal government to divest 60% stake in the Bank of Agriculture. It's available on page 11. And underneath that, we've got Navy transfers suspects to Interpol, page 5. Let's see if there's anything underneath at the bottom. Just at the bottom, the last headline there, Owo begins monarch's funeral rites. That story is on page 42. Okay, now I've gone through most of the papers today, and this is a recurring story, and I think I saw lots of it on social media as well yesterday regarding images and pictures of 2 who die in the Ibadan petrol tanker fire. Let's start with that before we move on to Onnoghen. Okay,
it's a shame what has become of our logistics of fuel in this country. The trucks are doing too much. There is no good environment anywhere in the world where you truck fuel the way we do. A truck picks fuel from Lagos and takes it all the way to Maiduguri, to Sokoto, to Kogi, to all parts of Nigeria. It is absolutely ridiculous. In the modern world, these things are piped under the ground. They don't have to disturb anybody.
Exactly.
But as long as we continue to use trucking as a means of moving fuel in this country, we'll have serious challenges. Not even the regulatory environment, because see, there are minimum safety standards for this truck, which a lot of them
don't abide by.
Who is sitting on top of that? But beyond that, because you will never, considering the way we use truck today in Nigeria, the regulatory authorities will have issues monitoring what these guys are doing, because there are too many of them.
And then let's not even forget the fact that it's highly flammable. So,
any little thing.
Exactly. Even at the vibration of a phone, there's fire, let alone a moving vehicle. So what do you think should be done? Do you think they should stop this movement generally, or should they create the pipelines underground like you suggested?
There's a clash of political will and economics in this mix. NNPC has an extensive network of pipelines. Quite a number of them have been vandalized. Some of them need some repairs. Nobody is repairing them because some people who own truck needs to make money. So you can see what I'm talking about. We need to go back to those pipelines. The Nigerian leaders in the past who developed those pipelines knew what they were doing when they did. We need to go back to them, fix them, make them functional. So that, for example, there's a pipe from Lagos to Ibadan. So why does anybody need to come and lift fuel from Lagos to Ibadan? Let's get those things working. That's a shortcut to it.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to Onnoghen now. Onnoghen convicted. That's a major headline that is also recurring on a lot of newspapers.
Yeah.
You know, what's your take?
It is a story that has a lot of interplay. There is the ethnicity thing, because in Nigeria, things are interpreted through those popular windows. Ethnicity, religion, partisan politics, all those things are there. But one thing that we must not lose sight of is what exactly is the issue at the heart of all of this. Did Onnoghen, did he do what they said he did? If he has done it, the fact that because some people will say, oh, he's a whole Chief Justice of a nation. It's not about Chief Justice of a nation. Or other things is because it's a no. Anybody who has run foul of the law should face the full weight of the law. The fact that some other people have run foul of the law and are running free, they are not being arrested, will not be an excuse. The fact that he's a Chief Justice will not be an excuse. The only thing that will save Onnoghen is to be able to establish, he's appealing now, at appeal, establish the fact that what they said you have done, you did not do it. If he has done it, sorry. All the other things become sentiment, and they will not stand.
Yeah. Well, you're very perceptive. What's your take in terms of him being guilty or not guilty? Do you think he was set up? Do you think he actually did the things that were suggested?
There were a lot of stories that were wrapped around all of this. Houses, this, and that, and that. But when you zero in on what the judge said, he didn't talk about all of those things. He zeroed in on accounts that were not declared. If indeed those accounts were not declared, sorry, there's a problem somewhere there. Now, bank statements or balances in account are the easiest evidence to get. You go to the bank, you print it out, and you show it. So if indeed there were money in those accounts that it could not justify by virtue of his salaries or other income, there will be an issue, which will mean that if those are there, even if he goes to a higher court, he will have major challenges to sustain that. I remember NJC, because one of the problems I had with this issue personally was when it started, I believe the process was flawed. People said this thing should have gone through the NJC. But I think at some point, NJC was invited. The verdict of the NJC seems to be that they said Onnoghen was not above board.
There's,
but the beauty of law is that now that you have been convicted by court, you have access to a higher place to go and plead your case. It's good. Let Onnoghen go to this higher court and represent his case. He might not have, if this one has been done by sentiment, the other guy might not likely have the same sentiment.
Okay. All right. Before I move on, I still want to hone in on one particular aspect. Do you think he was singled out? Because, like, if they're checking all of all of them.
Nice perspective there.
Okay.
He might have been singled out, but even that will not matter. What will matter is, did he do it? We tend to expect too much of the judiciary. If we say the executive is rotten and the legislators are corrupt, why do you think the judiciary will be shielded? Or if we say Nigerians are corrupt, our judiciary, do they live in special villages?
No.
They don't. Whatever happens or is affecting all the other people would definitely affect the judiciary as well. They're not immune to it.
Okay.
And then as far as whether he has been singled out, sorry, he might have been singled out. He might have been. But that will not be a reason to say, go in peace.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We've got the Vanguard newspaper next. There's a number of headlines, a lot actually, but we'll go through a few and then we'll discuss maybe one or two before we move on. So we've got Oshibajo didn't ask me to drop ambition, Ndume says. We've also provided adequate security for Easter in Lagos, police chief is saying. 26,400 farmers insured by IFAD in Niger within 4 years. Oshodi Apapa Expressway truck drivers attribute demurrage extortion to gridlock. Illegal mining, time for federal government to consider calls for restructuring. Federal government to maintain current forex policy, information minister. Okay, I think let me stop there because of time. Let's start with illegal mining. Time for the federal government to consider calls for restructuring. What's your take?
There is serious illegal mining going on in Nigeria. I watch on the news that we're all shouting of Zamfara. According to the Bureau of Statistics, Zamfara is not the biggest producer of gold. It is actually Osun State producing more than double what is going on in Zamfara. But nobody is also talking about what, there are no killings in Osun, however.
It's much more peaceful.
It's much more peaceful. But it still doesn't mean that we know what is going on in Osun. So it means that most likely all across where minerals are being mined, apart from petroleum, it's just in the hands of a few who are just using it for private gains. And the nation, how much money, if we look into our budget for 2019, how much can we say is going to be coming from mining apart from petroleum? Those are the questions. It seems as if it's shrouded in mystery, and it's some elitist, whatever, sharing things among themselves.
Going on.
That is what is going on.
I have also heard that, that some foreign hand is also involved. Did you hear that?
Because they know the value. Anywhere you see minerals, you will see foreign people. I mean, I've been to Sierra Leone, and I found Chinese in Sierra Leone. They literally control those mines. DRC Congo has not known peace for 40 years. When you go to DRC, as bad as it is, I think about 140 people are missing on the waters in DRC yesterday. As bad as it is, you will see foreigners all over the whole place because of the minerals.
So what would you say then is the issue? Is it with the foreigners who are here to buy, or is it with the elitist group? Or
problem is not with the foreigners.
Okay.
Somebody granted those foreigners some sort of license to do what they are doing.
Okay. Under
the table, whatever it is. But we need to zero in on these minerals and make it count for us. It should not be something in private hands for which the nation and the rest of us are not benefiting. How come everybody knows about oil, and oil is part of our, but nobody is zeroing in on these minerals? Let's be able to do what we are doing with oil, with those minerals.
So you think it should be restructured?
Restructuring will help to drive it. Restructuring is a whole lot of bigger gamut. I'm not sure we can discuss that
why
right
don't you give me just one, just for anyone who is watching right now, how do you think, or one way that you think the restructuring can be handled?
We need to talk about it first, which means people at the center need to agree that we need to restructure. If we restructure, which is what this news is talking about. Now, I just said that Osun State produced the highest volume of gold. If Osun State now does not have to go to Abuja to go and collect money to spend. He knows that he must generate money. He will ask questions about those mines. And that is it. That's where restructuring comes in.
Okay.
Each state.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's quickly touch on Osinbajo didn't ask me to drop ambition in Ndume. What's your take?
There has been a lot of stories in the media about how Ndume, after the meeting with Osinbajo, just stormed out and they asked him, are you still, and he said he's still contesting. So for most people, he disobeyed, he didn't want to listen to the vice president. But what he's saying is that the discussion he even had with the vice president has nothing to do with drop your ambition. So I think that should straighten it out with.
Okay, we're running out of time, so let's quickly move on to our last paper. We've got This Day newspaper with a lot of headlines as well. One of the top headlines: Arise Fashion Week begins Friday at 3 p.m., which I would imagine is today. Onnoghen heads to court for appeal, says CCT conviction unconstitutional. There's the 30,000 naira minimum wage as Buhari signs bill. There's also a report, fuel subsidy removal will reduce fiscal burden by 8%. We've got violent extremists killed 466 people in 3 months, says WANEP. We've got 2 die in Ibadan tanker accident. We talked about that earlier. Court grants Justice Ofili Ajumogobia 10 million naira bail and seizes passport. Okay, let's talk about the fuel subsidy removal. You think it's a burden? You think
it's a complex issue that we must deal with. leadership is not about doing the routine. It's also about taking tough decisions when it comes to that. Now, what we have seen in the last few months about fuel subsidy is today somebody in government will say there's need to remove it. Tomorrow somebody will say we didn't say that. I didn't say that. We're not prepared. So you have conflicting information about it. But that is not the way to go. The way to go is to actually engage the citizen. Engage them positively. This is the problem. The truth is that there's a major problem with that fuel subsidy. And we really need to remove it. So rather than dancing around it, confront it. Sit with the citizen. This is the issue. Let them understand. If people understand where you are going, you probably can, get their support to go there. But if they don't know what you are doing, if you just wake up one day and go and remove fuel subsidy from under the table, there will be a problem. People will resist you maximally. We need to remove fuel subsidy.
Okay, all right. It's a wonderful way to sort of end your contribution there. There's one more headline that looks interesting. Adoke, I can't be held liable for executing Jonathan's order. Okay.
I'm sure. I mean, Adoke is a big-time lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but from common sense, I'm not sure that it is right. If your boss has asked you to go and do a wrong thing, you cannot say because you are sent to do a wrong thing that you will not be liable. I don't think that commentary is right. Or maybe it's the media that twisted it.
That twisted it. You never know. Sometimes it's sensationalism, Yeah. But we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. You've been listening to Gbolahun Olojede, public affairs analyst. And that's where we're going to wrap up on this edition of The Press. Until Monday morning, when we're back with the latest headlines once again, I remain Tokunbo Taiwo saying have a happy Good Friday, have a good Easter in advance, and have a great weekend as well. I'm Tokunbo Taiwo saying good morning.